How did a college party boy gain control of a nation's wealth? This is the story of the fugitive who vanished with $1 billion, actually $4.5 billion stolen from Malaysia's National Development Fund. Jho Low didn't just steal money, he bought Hollywood celebrities, financed blockbuster movies, and then disappeared without a trace. And why did the celebrities and bankers who enjoyed his money face almost no consequences, while Malaysia was left with abandoned projects and billions in debt? This is how he pulled it off, and why the real price is still being paid. It all started with access. Jho Low's father was a successful businessman, but more importantly, he taught his son the value of connections. Low went to the Wharton School of Business, but he wasn't there just for the classes. He was there to build a network, and his most important connection was to a fellow Malaysian student named Riza Aziz. That name might not mean much, but his stepfather's does. Najib Razak, who would become the Prime Minister of Malaysia. When Najib took power in 2009, he needed a way to fund his government's ambitious plans. Jho Low, now a young financier, had the perfect idea: create a sovereign wealth fund. And so, One Malaysia Development Berhad, 1MDB, was born. Low positioned himself as an unofficial advisor, the man behind the curtain. But to get the massive amounts of money needed, he needed a world-class bank. He needed Goldman Sachs. Goldman saw a golden opportunity. They agreed to help 1MDB raise money by issuing bonds. Between 2012 and 2013, Goldman Sachs underwrote 3 bond offerings for 1MDB totaling $6.5 billion. For this work, they charged an astonishing $600 million in fees. To put that in perspective, a typical fee for such a service would be around 1 to 2%. Goldman's fee was closer to 10%. It was a red flag so large you could see it from space, but the potential profit was too tempting. Here's how the deception worked. The money would be raised for a specific, legitimate-sounding purpose, like a joint venture with a Middle Eastern partner. Goldman would transfer the billions to 1MDB. But then, within days, sometimes hours, the money would be diverted. It would flow through a series of shell companies with names chosen to sound legitimate, like Good Star Limited. From there, it would end up in accounts controlled directly by Jho Low and his associates. Take one transaction from September 2009. $1 billion was transferred from 1MDB to a company called Petro Saudi International. But $700 million of that was immediately sent to an account owned by Good Star Limited, which was secretly controlled by Jho Low. It was a simple bait and switch on a monumental scale. The money never went to development, it went directly into Low's pocket to fund his extravagant lifestyle. This couldn't have happened without help from inside Goldman Sachs. Bankers Tim Leissner and Roger Ng were key players. Leissner, who later pleaded guilty, admitted that he and others at Goldman knowingly ignored the obvious signs of corruption because the fees were so lucrative. They helped obscure the true destination of the funds, assuring compliance departments that everything was above board. The system had blind spots, and Jho Low and his enablers at Goldman Sachs found every single one. With this endless flow of cash now secured, Jho Low's real project could begin. He wasn't just stealing money, he was building an empire of influence. And to make it untouchable, he needed to buy something even more valuable than a super yacht. He needed to buy American celebrity and political power. With billions flowing from the 1MDB fund into his accounts, Jho Low faced a new problem: how to spend it without raising suspicion. His solution was as brilliant as it was brazen. He wouldn't hide the money. He would flaunt it in the most public way possible, using celebrity friendships as both a shield and a form of reputation laundering. If he was seen partying with Hollywood's biggest stars, who would question where the money came from? His strategy had 2 parts. The public face was all about glamour and excess. The private operation was about building a legal and political fortress, and it all started with a single movie, The Wolf of Wall Street. In 2012, Low invested $100 million through Red Granite Pictures, a company founded by the Prime Minister's stepson, Riza Aziz. The irony was breathtaking. Here was a film about financial crime and corruption, funded with money stolen from a national development fund. At the movie's premiere, Leonardo DiCaprio even thanked Jho Low by name from the stage, giving the financier a stamp of approval from one of the world's biggest stars. But that was just the beginning of the relationship. Low became DiCaprio's personal benefactor. He gifted the actor a $9.2 million painting by Jean-Michel Basquiat. He financed DiCaprio's environmental foundation. He flew him around the world on private jets for parties that became the stuff of legend. In 2012, for his 31st birthday, Low rented a super yacht and threw a multi-day bash in the Italian Riviera. The guest list included DiCaprio, models flown in from around the world, and a performance by Kanye West. The cost for that single party was estimated at over $2 million. Then there was supermodel Miranda Kerr. Low began dating her in 2014 and showered her with jewelry, including an 11.72-carat, heart-shaped diamond necklace worth $1.8 million and an 8.88-carat diamond pendant. The number 8 is considered lucky in Chinese culture, and Low's total gifts to Kerr eventually reached nearly $8 million. Other celebrities, from Paris Hilton to Kim Kardashian, received six-figure payments simply to attend his parties. Low wasn't just buying their presence, he was buying their implied endorsement, creating a facade of legitimacy that was almost impenetrable. While the world watched the Hollywood spectacle, Low was quietly building his second, more crucial line of defense, a multi-million-dollar influence operation in Washington, D.C. This is where the story gets even darker. As early as 2015, when investigations into 1MDB were just beginning, Low started paying American law firms and public relations companies to manage his reputation and lobby U.S. officials. The paper trail is in the Foreign Agents Registration Act, or FARA, filings. Firms like Cobra and Kim were paid millions to wage a behind-the-scenes war against the U.S. Department of Justice. Their job was to dispute asset seizures, challenge legal claims, and create a narrative that Low was the victim of a political witch hunt. At the same time, lobbyists were hired to influence the Trump administration. In 2017, a fundraiser named Elliot Broidy allegedly discussed a deal where, for $75 million, he would lobby the Justice Department to drop its 1MDB investigation. While these efforts ultimately failed, they show how Low used his stolen billions to fight the U.S. government on its own turf. This dual strategy created a powerful shield. The glamorous public persona distracted the media and the public, while the expensive legal team delayed and complicated the investigations for years. It meant that by the time authorities finally closed in, Jho Low had a massive head start. The party was over, but the escape plan was already in motion. The first crack in the shield appeared in 2015, when a series of whistleblower emails were leaked to journalists. They detailed the massive flow of money from 1MDB to Jho Low's shell companies. Almost overnight, the Asian Gatsby became an international fugitive. But Low had been preparing for this moment. He didn't panic, he simply began to disappear. His last confirmed public sighting was in Macau in late 2016. After that, he became a ghost. The key to his disappearance was a collection of passports from countries that sell citizenship to the wealthy. His Malaysian passport was revoked in 2018, but he already held passports from St. Kitts and Nevis and, crucially, Cyprus. These documents allowed him to travel through a shadow immigration system designed for the ultra-rich. He allegedly used ground butler services, where a private jet handler takes your passport directly to immigration officials, allowing you to bypass any direct screening. You simply walk from your plane to a waiting car. But the most persistent theory about his disappearance involves his face. Intelligence reports and media investigations have long speculated that Jho Low underwent extensive plastic surgery to alter his appearance and evade facial recognition. Sources in Malaysia and Singapore told reporters they believed he had changed his face. A plastic surgeon interviewed by the Star newspaper explained that for someone with Low's resources, altering his signature chubby round face to a more angular oval shape would be a relatively simple procedure costing between $10,000 to $20,000. Procedures to change the eyes, nose, and mouth could be done in a matter of hours. The recovery period would be a few weeks of swelling, a small price to pay for a new identity. This theory is fueled by the fact that authorities have no recent photographs of him. All the images circulated by Interpol are from years before he vanished. The mythos grew online, with digital artists creating mock-ups of what a surgically altered Jho Low might look like. Whether true or not, the rumor itself became a tool, adding another layer of mystery and making him even harder to find. So where did he go? The current consensus among intelligence agencies is that he is living under the protection of the Chinese government, likely in Shanghai or Macau. In 2020, Al Jazeera reported he was living in a Macau house owned by a senior member of the Chinese Communist Party. China has repeatedly denied harboring him, but the belief is that he traded his financial expertise and remaining assets for a safe haven, making him untouchable by Western law enforcement. More recent reports, as recent as 2025, suggest he may be in Shanghai using a forged Australian passport under a completely new name, Vase Konstantinos Achilles. The chase continues, but it's largely a paper chase. While Low remains physically free, governments have been seizing his assets. His super yacht, Equanimity, was sold. Authorities have taken luxury apartments in New York, London, and Los Angeles. In 2024, he forfeited over $100 million more in assets, including a Paris apartment and artwork by Monet and Warhol. But these are just fragments of the $4.5 billion that was stolen. The bitter irony is that while governments chase these physical assets, the real power, the influence his money bought, is harder to seize. His legal teams continue to operate, fighting the US government in court. In a way, the money itself became the ultimate fugitive, scattering and hiding within the global financial system. So, what was left in the wake of Jho Low's vanishing act? The physical cost to Malaysia is staggering. The Tun Razak exchange, the gleaming financial district that 1MDB was supposed to build, sits unfinished. A monument to stolen ambition. The fund's debts, which the Malaysian government was forced to assume, total over $7 billion. The money that was meant to build schools and infrastructure instead bought champagne and private jets. The accountability, however, has been wildly uneven. Goldman Sachs paid a $5 billion fine to settle charges, but the bank admitted no wrongdoing. The bankers involved faced consequences. Tim Leisner pleaded guilty, while Roger Ng was convicted. The former Prime Minister, Najib Razak, is now in prison. The celebrities, DiCaprio, Kerr, and others, cooperated with investigators and returned the extravagant gifts, facing no legal penalties for their involvement. They walked away unscathed. Jho Low himself remains a ghost, a symbol of a system that can be manipulated with enough money and audacity. His story is more than a heist. It's a blueprint. It shows how to use global banks to move money, Hollywood to build a reputation, and political lobbyists to fight your battles. It proves that with sufficient wealth, you can corrupt the very systems designed to stop corruption. The fugitive CEO vanished, but the empire of ghosts he built, of unfinished projects, unresolved debts, and a broken sense of justice, is still very much with us. If you want to see how this story connects to other business empires built on secrets, make sure to watch this next. Subscribe for more untold stories from the dark side of the business world.